Hello everyone, I am Michael Vincent. What I bring to you today is real cases that happened in the United States. The Green River serial killer case. The story takes place in Washington State, USA, in Seattle City. Here, there is a river called Green River, meandering with lots of sleazy clubs and bars by the river. Initially, the area was filled with singing and dancing, and no one thought that one of the deadliest mass murders in American history would disrupt the peace here. The murderer brutally murdered more than 48 women, the majority of whom were prostitutes under 18 years old. The number of murders committed by the murderer makes him the #1 serial killer in U.S. history. The shadow of death haunted Seattle as the police pursued the case for 20 years. So, what exactly happened that year? Who is the killer? Now, let's go back to 1982 and review the details of the case. On August 15, 1982, Robert Ainsworth, 41, was rowing a rubber boat drifting north along the Green River. When he reached a stream in the southern suburbs of Seattle, he unexpectedly discovered what seemed to be a black girl in the water, staring at him. Upon closer inspection, it was a mannequin pinned by the rocks at the bottom of the water. He tried to use the paddle in his hand to poke open the stone, but the rubber boat suddenly lost its balance and capsized. Robert fell right next to the mannequin, only to find out it was actually a woman's body. In the crevice of the rock, there was also a half-naked black girl lying there. Frightened, Robert risked his life to swim to shore and called the police immediately. Seattle police were shocked after receiving the call, as just a month ago, the body of a 16-year-old girl, Wendy Caulfield, was found floating in the Green River. She had been strangled and thrown into the river. But just a few days ago, another 23-year-old girl, Deborah Bonner, was strangled to death and placed under a tree next to the Green River. Now, another body was found in the Green River. Police quickly sealed off the scene, and while looking for evidence, they found another girl's body lying on the grass less than 10 meters away. This girl was strangled to death by blue underwear around her neck, with many wounds on her arms and legs. The downtime should not exceed 2 days. The police checked the bodies of the two girls picked up from the river and found out they were tied to stones and sunk into the water after their death. After researching, they learned that the two victims in the river were Marcia Chapman, 31, and Cynthia Hines, 17 years old. The victim found on the grass was 16-year-old Opal Mills. Within 2 months, 5 victims were discovered one after another near the Green River, all of whom were involved in prostitution in Seattle's famous red light district. At this point, the police noticed they might be dealing with a serial killer, as the remains of these victims were all found at Green River. Hence, the name of this series of cases, the Green River Serial Killer Case. The unknown murderer was also referred to as the Green River Killer by the news media at the time. People all over Seattle began to fall into an inexplicable state of panic. To track down the Green River Killer, the police established the Green River Task Force, led by Dave Reichert. However, as the police urgently opened the case for investigation, the hidden killer clearly had no intention of stopping. On September 15, 1982, 18-year-old Mary Meehan, a mother who was 8 months pregnant, suddenly disappeared while walking near her house. On September 20th, 15-year-old Deborah Estes went missing. On September 26th, 16-year-old Linda Rule disappeared. By the end of 1982, 16 girls had either suddenly disappeared or been found dead. The investigation agency had no breakthrough yet, and victims appeared one after another. Rumors spread in Seattle, accusing the police of not being able to solve the case and not taking the victims seriously because they were prostitutes. After establishing the investigation team, the police stepped in to investigate the case. At that time, there were no computers or surveillance, so they had to start from countless clues coming from all directions, trying to figure out what these girls had in common. Most of them knew each other, had experience selling sex, and were aged from 14 to 23 years old. They either disappeared after getting into a customer's car near the red light district or during a deal at a cheap hotel. The police decided to conduct a blanket search in areas frequented by these girls, focusing on dance clubs and bars. This amount of work was huge, with 47,000 clues traced and nearly 4,000 suspects investigated by the police. However, the case never achieved a breakthrough, and the police had to ask the FBI for help. After the FBI came into contact with the case, they initially had no clues but soon thought of a way to lure the snake out of the cave. They sent female agents disguised as prostitutes to lure the killer, but the murderer seemed to have predicted it and didn't take the bait. On May 8, 1983, a local resident found a body in a forest in Seattle's Maple Valley neighborhood. It was identified as Carol Christensen, who had been missing for 5 days. The body was found in a strange position, with the killer apparently using the body as a dining table. Carol's head was wrapped in a brown paper bag, with a fish placed on the neck and left chest, respectively. Her arms were crossed over her stomach, with some fresh meat placed above the left hand and a bottle placed between her legs. According to the prosecutor's examination, she was strangled to death with a rope. The body was found a few centimeters away from the Green River, but it was immersed in river water. The task force speculated that Carol was also killed by the Green River killer, and the murderer staged the scene to mock the incompetence of the police. By the end of 1983, more girls were either missing or found murdered, with at least 16 more inextricably linked to the Green River killer. It's also possible that the number of victims is higher than estimated. At this point, the police were almost engulfed in angry accusations, and although they worked very hard to investigate, the case was still deadlocked. In 1984, the total number of alleged victims of the Green River killer was more than 40, and the maximum number of members of the specialized team was up to 56 people. The task force thinks they have discovered the killer, even confirmed. The killer is a taxi driver, but while they accept that driver, murders still happen without success. After 3 years of investigation, the police began to reduce investigation funding. Law and the task force were essentially disbanded. Only team leader Niket is still there, continuing to pursue this case. In 1987, the leadership of the task force was changed. The direction of his investigation has also changed. The task force is no longer trying to prove who the serial killer is, but puts a list of all suspects found to find out who is not the killer. Finally, those who cannot be photographed are suspects, listed as a key investigation and surveillance target. An artist named Lee Chi-wei therefore fell under the radar of the police. After conducting in-depth investigation, we found clues. Before 1982 to 1983, basically every time someone goes missing, that day the family either lacked money or came home late and returned early. Furthermore, this family was also arrested for prostitution brokerage in 1982. Although these issues were later resolved, the woman he had sex with was murdered immediately afterwards. At first, because there was no real evidence to prove he's a murderer, so it's nothing. April 30th, 1983, Mary Malva is missing. The last person to see him was his pimp boyfriend, who saw Mary on the side of the road on Route 99 after getting on the pickup truck. He followed him in his car, but lost it at the intersection. Then Mary arrived very late and did not return. The next day, he took Mary's family with him to find cars nearby. Sure enough, it was in front of a truck driver's cottage where they found this car. The car owner is a local artist. The police immediately conducted interrogation at the house and looked through previous case files, finding near where several other deceased people disappeared. They also found the family car, which shows that some people have died, most likely met at home. Even though the family is being questioned, says he doesn't know Mom, Lee, and the other dead, but police still classified him as the primary pedestrian. Serious Crime Team, after this reorganization, decided to reinvestigate the house. The police directly searched the house and collected samples of his saliva and hair loss. DNA technology was not yet mature at that time. You can only collect the first samples and wait for advanced technology before testing. But the police used a relatively advanced lie detector to check at home. In total, it was done twice. As a result, the whole family suffered extremely. The police had no choice but to release the family. Time passes. The time has come, 2001. Established from Green River Staff Group, it's been almost 20 years. Team leader Dave Reichert was also appointed director of the Jing County Police Department. He is, at this moment, continuing to investigate these cases, determined to find the killer. DNA technology at this time has been widely used in administrative technology. Experts guide and direct investigations, switch to fingerprint comparison again, and on all items, there may be DNA. Take the victim out of the Green River, and other victims' remains are well preserved. Body fluid samples are collected along with the hair and hair of the suspect's family back then. Saliva samples sent to Washington together at the National Criminal Case Laboratory. September 2001, Take Lie That Vi, home with the 3 victims of the Green River murders, contacted, determined that the perpetrator was the family. On September 30th, a 52-year-old man was arrested by police at his home. Stay home at this time, he seems like a very easygoing person. Even the police who interrogated him couldn't believe it. The honest man in front of me, the devil caused dozens of murders, legal killer. February 18th, 1949, Lee Chiwei family was born in Salt Lake City, Lord, Utah. He has 2 brothers. His father is a bus driver. His mother is quite domineering with a strong desire for control. The relationship between the parents is very bad, often quarrel, even violent conflicts often occur. The more times you do it, the more your family will get used to it. Not the smart one in the family, his IQ test score was only 82. He had the habit of wetting the bed until he was 13 years old. After each bedwetting event, his mother would scold him, swear, and clean his genitals. These behaviors were buried in the heart of his family at a young age, female seeds. The family is not very smart because his study results are not very good, repeating a year in high school. After graduating, he joined the Navy to perform his military service. At the same time, he is in love with a 19-year-old girlfriend, Claudia Barros, for several years, Mary. Not long after getting married, he was sent to Vietnam. During this time, home often applauds for his love for prostitutes. Because no protective measures were taken, he has a mental illness. He felt extremely angry, but no protective measures have been taken yet. Continue having sex with prostitutes. While in the army, his wife also had an affair. They divorced a year later. Bentley's house in the car repair shop gets a job as a game engineer. This met his second wife at home, Marcia Winslow. In 1972, there was another marriage in the family, married and has a son. His second wife then reported it to the police that there is a tendency for sexual abuse in the family. They may even require some inappropriate outdoor activities. Clap your hands for love in the right place. Second, Marcia has always been fatter. After that, he lost weight quickly thanks to bypass surgery. Become more attractive, therefore it attracts the attention of many men. Because of the deception of the first wife at home, along with occasional jealousy, he always thinks that his current wife Hong Xing is cheating on him. So the two often quarreled later in their marriage. Coming home later and later, there is still no good reason. So this marriage ended before it went away. 1985, meet wife Judith Sharon at home, Mosin until his arrest. His wife also did not notice anything unusual about him. After he was arrested, his family remained silent for 2 years, refused to endure sin. However, the prosecutor still arrested 7 bosses in the Green River serial murder case, charged with first-degree murder at home. If found guilty, he faces the death penalty under local law. But for others, the victim's family has not pleaded guilty. It's not fair. The victims' families were also affected by this incident. I've been waiting for 20 years. After weighing many times to continue the case, prosecutor, they want family commitment. You just need to plead guilty and actively cooperate. Exempted from the death penalty. The maximum sentence is life imprisonment. After hearing the news at home, it's like holding on to a life-saving straw, said he would actively cooperate. But as part of a plea agreement, he had to confess the locations of other victims are still missing. Check for cases where the victim was found to have pleaded guilty later. He confessed to 48 of his stupid crimes. And how many people has he actually slept with? No one knows because he himself talks too much. I don't remember clearly either. November 5th, 2003. The Green River serial killer in Washington State, Seattle Superior Court, is open. The 54-year-old maid appeared in court in the past 20 years. He killed 48 women, most of whom were prostitutes and young women. As a result, more than 20 victims were all under 18 years old. He would typically have sex with them first and then strangle them to death. A family member with a depraved mentality believed that killing young women was his profession. During the 4.5-hour trial that day, there were no symptoms at home, and the atmosphere was unusually calm. The judge read the victims' names in court, which took 8 minutes. Each time a victim's name was read, the family would say, "I am guilty." On December 18th, 2003, the Jingxian High Court sentenced the entire family to 48 life sentences, which were not maintained. What turned an honest person with an IQ of only 82 into a bloodthirsty and brutal serial killer? The first wife's deception was a cause, and the poor growing environment at home was also a significant factor. From an early age, his parents exposed him to violence, abuse, and control. These behaviors planted shadows in the young family member's heart. As a parent, if you cannot do good with all your heart, can there still be light in the child's heart? Above is the famous Green River serial murder case in America. A new creator with 100,000 followers can hardly be called a newbie. Making videos is not easy, so please give Sanlian some support. Just moving your finger is a great encouragement to me. I am Michael Vincent. See you next time.